President Trump is on his way home from Beijing, where he met with Chinese leader Xi Jinping for a second straight day. Today, their one-on-one time included a stroll through the compound of China's Communist Party. But it was aboard Air Force One just a short time ago that the president delivered news that's sure to rattle Taiwan. He says he and President Xi discussed a pending multi-billion-dollar U.S. arms deal to the self-governing island, which China claims as its territory. Listen.
We discussed the Taiwan, the whole thing with the arms deals was in great detail, actually. And I'll be making decisions. But I think the last thing we need right now is a war that's 9,500 miles away. I think that's the last thing we need. We're doing very well.
Would the U.S. defend Taiwan if it came to it?
I don't want to say that. I'm not going to say that. There's only one person that knows that. You know who it is? Me. I'm the only person. That question was asked to me today by President Xi. I said, I don't talk about those.
He asked you today.
He asked you if you would send troops, if you would. He asked me if I'd defend them. I said, I don't talk about that.
All right, let's go live right now to CNN's Julia Benbrook over at the White House. Julia, how significant are the president's comments on Taiwan?
Potentially very significant. President Donald Trump did not go into a lot of detail here, but what he did say, what he didn't say, both lead to a lot of questions. Now, this is following that summit with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, and Trump said that he did not make a commitment either way on Taiwan. When it comes to the arms sales specifically, he said that he will make that determination at some point. Now, this comes after Secretary of State Marco Rubio, in an interview with NBC News following those meetings, said that the United States policy on Taiwan remains, quote, unchanged. And diving a bit deeper into that, the United States acknowledges China's position that Taiwan is a part of China, but has never officially recognized the Communist Party's claim to the self-governing island. And Washington has robust, unofficial business with Taiwan. And so in these questions, there's also been, of course, the United States policy has been intentionally ambiguous when it comes to if it would intervene militarily if China were to attack Taiwan. And Trump was pressed on that specifically. He declined to answer, but he did say that Xi actually asked him about that question as well. He said that he did not answer it there either. Now, overall, this summit seemed to end on a high note for relations between the United States and China. Both of these leaders have been touting that there is a steadier relationship. In Trump's last remarks before he headed home, he praised China. Now, he also said that the two leaders fixed a lot of problems during this summit, but that is where we're lacking a lot of details. What each side got, there are not a lot of concrete specifics to look into at this point. Woof.
All right, Julia Benbrook at the White House, thank you very, very much.
Let's get to our chief national security analyst, Jim Sciutto, who's been listening in. Jim, who's been to Taiwan and China many, many times. This language on Taiwan from the president, the failure to commit to these arms sales to Taiwan. Jim, is this what China wanted out of this trip?
It's definitely something for China, right? Because the president did not make a commitment to a decision the U.S. had already made, right, to supply these arms. Now, he could change his mind later and decide to send those arms, to move forward on them. But a pause, if we could read it that way, is a win for China. And leading up to this, and we spoke about this prior to the summit, this had been the main concern among U.S. allies in the region, and frankly, many in this country, both Republican and Democrat, that the president would yield ground on Taiwan, whether that be on the arms sales or on language as to how the U.S. describes its relationship to Taiwan. Does it not support independence? Maybe he might move the language to it opposes independence. He didn't say that there. We don't know what he said privately, but that had been the concern going in. So here on Taiwan, from the president's statement, he gave some ground. Again, he could change it tomorrow or next week and say, actually, I'm going ahead with the arms deals, but a pause, time to think about it. He said also in his comments he's going to speak to the person in his administration who handles the Taiwan issue, is an opening for the Chinese leader. I also noted some other language in his comments here, which is him essentially parroting China's view of Taiwan. He says, hey, look, we've had it for thousands of years. He's speaking from China's perspective, and then a certain period of time it left. That is China's view, that Taiwan belongs to China, and that this brief period of time since the 40s, when it became, they can't use the word independent, but when it became separate from China, was the aberration. Right, and it's much like we'll talk about the Ukraine war, right? Mimicking Russia's language about the invasion, whose fault it is, etc. I would say on Taiwan, those two things are movement in the direction of Xi Jinping. He would consider those positives. The other thing I'll say is, going into this, what was the U.S. going to get in return on Iran? Because that was a prime U.S. concern going in, and it doesn't appear, at least it didn't say, that he got any commitment from China to help there, other than to say that they'd like to see the Strait open. And he will say we don't need China, and you've heard that from other U.S. officials. But the fact is, they would certainly like Chinese pressure on Iran to help open up the Strait. So, other than Boeing aircraft sales and soybeans, which, by the way, there's no written commitment, right? And if you go back to the first Trump administration, China promised to buy a whole, loads of soybeans, and they didn't buy all those soybeans. Other than that, it's hard to see what the U.S. walks away from the summit with. It's concrete.
On Iran as well, Jim, I mean, it seemed what the president is saying was discussed and agreed to when it comes to with Xi was largely previously stated positions that China does not want to see Iran have a nuclear weapon, that China would like to see the Strait of Hormuz reopen. I heard the president there say that Iran has told him directly that they do not have the technology to remove the enriched uranium from Iran. Only the United States and China have that technology. So that leaves an open question of, okay, now what?
Yeah, it does. In his comments towards the end there, Trump left open the possibility of going in, right? Is he setting up the possibility of sending U.S. forces in there, which has been an option for some time, and Israelis have considered that as well, but that would be an enormously dangerous operation. Is that a serious proposal from the president there, that he's actually considering that, given all the reporting we have that the president wants to end hostilities? Or is it, braggadocio? Right? Is he saying, we can solve this problem? It's not as big a deal as it's been portrayed. I can't imagine a Chinese-U.S. cooperation, to get it out there in a military operation. But could that be part of a nuclear agreement if the U.S. and Iran were to move forward to serious nuclear negotiations? Possibly. Possibly. I mean, the other point I'll just make is, the president said that Iran would have used a nuclear weapon by now under the previous nuclear deal. It's not clear. There's no U.S. assessment of that, and it's not clear what he bases that on, because Iran had far less enriched uranium under the JCPOA than it has now, with more than 400 kilograms. So it's a comment President Trump has made, a claim he's made repeatedly, but there's no intelligence assessment we're aware of that the U.S. has assessed that Iran would have used a nuclear weapon in the last couple of years.